the desecrated temple.
Hello and welcome to the final part of our Gauntlet full playthrough on real arcade hardware. Of course, just like in all my other videos, this is running on the Atari Vegas 777 board set, which consists of 3 small boards that are all interconnected together to run this game. No emulation is happening here. This is actually all running on the real board. Now this section will show the desecrated temple here and the altar of scorn, and then everything that happens afterwards. Because as I had mentioned in many of my videos, I wanted to not only make a full playthrough, but I wanted this to be a truly complete playthrough where not only you see me defeating all 4 realms and their bosses, but you also see what happens when you get all the rune stones. Because as I'd mentioned at least once in every video by now, when I first played this game on the cruise ship when I was younger, I had no idea about the rune stones, so like me and the kids who actually had played this together didn't know that like certain things would happen if you didn't collect the rune stones. And basically what happens here is you have all the characters from all 4 different realms in Gauntlet Legends that actually show up here. You'll see there are those like orange guys from the forest realm, there are those gray pharaoh looking guys from the desert realm. There's some of those green guys from the mountain kingdom. And then of course there's those gray guys with the big cleavers from the castle realm. And you just have to break these like little teleporter pads that they're on in order to stop them from spawning into here. But it's one of those things that's kind of easier said than done since so many of them are spawning in at once, because like each side of this place has like 1 or 2 of these transporters, and of course they're coming from all sides. So being able to power up your like super attack like that actually does help quite a bit here. But the thing to remember here is there's no requirement to actually defeat all the enemies or stop all the generators. You just have to more or less get through this. And if you're wondering what happened there is, Death was there, and unfortunately I don't have any actual magic potions, so I couldn't defeat him, so I just had to avoid him. And now this is one of those points where you would benefit from some like extra keys, because you notice I'm kind of all out of them. And unfortunately, then I activated Death, and
After stealing 100 health.
and I believe that actually is the first time that like Death fully fed on me, so that's the first time the actual announcer in this playthrough could say that phrase. Because I knew from like past experiences in this game, both console and arcade, that if you do a magic spell as soon as Death awakens, it will just make him go away. He'll like scream and then just disappear. So I never had a time where I was so low on magic that basically letting him take 100 health would be a better idea than using that magic potion, which, as you see here, I do not have right now. And I also have to say this is kind of a cool remix of the Gauntlet theme. It's kind of like faster, and it has that church type sound, the pipe organ. And this is where all that extra strength that I added to my character really comes into play, when the character is handing to hand with everybody here. And that's another good thing you can rest on your laurels at this point in the playthrough, is that there are no more rune stones. The object is just to get to the exit so you can fight some of the final battles. But of course the problem is with everybody just more or less like attacking you at once, it just becomes hard to even live. Like, just think of all the coins you'd have to pump in if it was only you with all these enemies. And now that's level 46. And you'll see there's some more treasure chests and some more gold all scattered about here. Definitely love the music in this game. You can kind of hear it there. It just has like a really cool sound to it. I know I mentioned it in just about all the videos I played of this, but yeah, the music is definitely a high point of this game. It just sounds really good, especially here in the arcade version, as like with some of the versions they had to tone it down a little. No need to compromise here, because of course this is a full arcade spec. And I can remember back when I was playing this was more or less at the time where I was like, I just want to get out of this place. I really don't care about any of these enemies or any of these treasures or anything, so just get it done with. And there it is. That was the the stage before the quote-unquote final boss here. And then here is... Now, if you had not completed the runestones, this is your final boss. And that's one thing I never was a fan of in games like this, is when the boss can, like, grab you and just really attack you. I think of some of the, like, dragon enemies that would grab you and then, like, pull you across, like, say, the stage. And Scorn is actually very similar to some of the other enemies, whereas he just has a bunch of, like, attacks. If you really want to save on your health, you probably could avoid them, but I think more or less at this point in the playthrough when I was playing this, I was actually, like, so tired that I was like, I just want to defeat Scorn and get this over with. Of course, there's no way I could have known what would come after this, as I had mentioned a few times during this playthrough, this is the first time I have ever actually fully beaten Gauntlet Legends. So, this is the time when, like, I can finally see what happens when you, when basically you defeat Scorn with all the runestones. Because as I had mentioned a few minutes ago, regardless of how many runestones you got or how many runestones you didn't get, this battle will simply always happen. It more or less just gets triggered by having defeated all the realms and having your character data just have all the realms as finished. So, it's not like you did any kind of, like, grand achievement or anything. You just went through all the realms, and what you'll see is the ones where you didn't get all the runestones will just have that, like, that traveled, and the ones you got all the runestones will have that completed on them. So if you actually end up having to go back after this fight, you don't have to go through every realm looking for runestones. You just go on the realms that do not say that they were completed. Because if I recall correctly, the traveled was yellow, and then the completed was red, and that would tell you which realms you haven't, like, fully finished yet. But as you can see here, this is, as I mentioned, a fairly basic boss battle. If you keep your distance and you keep moving, you won't take too much damage. Although, like, some of the moves, like the one where he throws the, like, the quake attack that kind of, like, scatters like that, unless you're far away, you're always going to get hit by that. But, unless you're really close to him, he won't do that attack where he grabs you and, takes a lot more health away. I could remember, like, facing this in the arcade and actually getting killed one time and being afraid I wouldn't have enough time to put coins in order to get the health back to keep playing this. But you'll see now that he's about to die, he's kind of like pulling out all the stops and throwing everything at you at once. Like multiple little bombs he'll throw at you instead of just one. And that's all there is to this version of Scorn.
The Mask of Scorn! Congratulations! You have defeated the evil demon Scorn and banished him to the underworld. I see you have found all 12 missing runestones. Well done. Now enter the underworld and destroy Scorn forever.
And basically what would have happened is if you did not get all the runestones, he would have like complained about you not getting the runestones and told you had to go back and get them.
Of the underworld.
And then of course, as I had mentioned, you would actually have to find which realms you have fully completed and complete those realms. And now what you see here, these are the these are like the secondary characters of the realms. The lava monsters, the tree monsters, the knights, and the zombies. They're the secondary monsters as opposed to the desecrated temple, which was the like first enemies that you would face. And the only, like, drawback of, winning the battle against Scorn as a one-player game is there is no way to get all the, Scorn items, so I could only get the Mask of Scorn, which is this, like, silly thing that makes your primary shot just breathe fire, which, if I recall correctly, when I was playing this, I just simply wanted to, get rid of it as soon as possible so I could have my really quick shooting again, because it's kind of a great, like, sweeping attack, but it's not too good if you want to defeat, like, your enemies really swiftly, like I would with my various bow attacks that I have. And unfortunately, this kind of seems to last a bit longer than it really should. I don't really remember which one of the power-ups I'd gotten when I had originally played this, but I can remember after I was sent back to the beginning of the game to find the runestones, I didn't know what I was supposed to do or how to find them, so pretty much shortly after that I stopped playing this game and never went back to the arcade version of the game since no arcade or any like place with a lot of games had this game that I could like invest that kind of money or time into playing the game on location. As I'd mentioned, this had just been on a vacation where I had a decent amount of money to play games with. So it's not like I was just like going to, say, like some sort of game center at any given time and just playing the game. It was somewhere where, when I was young, of course, when it comes to like something like a cruise ship, I wouldn't be doing all kinds of like nightlife and partying and stuff because I was just a kid, so like it came second nature to find like the place with video games and play some of the video games such as this game here. And as I'd mentioned, that was in 2001, so this game would have only been 3 years old, so it actually was fairly new at the time, unlike now where at this point it's 14 years old. But I still have to say, regardless of anything, that it is still an amazingly fun game. And I'll say it now, and I'll say it again later. Is I highly recommend playing Gauntlet Legends, regardless of what version. If you can play the arcade version, either on an emulator or on the actual Vegas board, like I have here, it's always a better experience because it's not watered down to one of the console versions. Most people I've heard have said the Nintendo 64 version kind of comes as a close second, and the Dreamcast version is a really good version too. Both of those versions are good because they're both 4 players, whereas PlayStation is only 2, and it graphically doesn't look nearly as nice as this. And that's another really cool power-up because you can just kill all the... If you're being swarmed by enemies like in the Desecrated Temple, you could just go ahead and kill them all without having to worry about anything there. Now, unlike a lot of the levels, some of these, like, last levels are actually honestly kind of boring after a while. I can remember playing this, and I was really tired, and I was like... when is this whole underworld thing ever going to end? It just seems like it's taking forever, because more or less it's just barrage after barrage of enemies that just keep getting thrown at you, and, you know, it's like any, playing a game for so long and doing the same thing over and over again, it just kind of gets repetitive and monotonous after a while. So, even though it is an excellent game, like, these last sections are kind of like that endurance round. And just like in the Desecrated Temple, there are these same little transporters that all the enemies are transporting in, so if you break those, you can, stay in one area and not have to worry about more enemies being spawned. And of course, just like in the regular areas, there actually are some dead ends here. And the weird part about a lot of these paths is they don't actually just get triggered automatically. You actually have to walk over there yourself in order to have, like, the game make the path appear. So it's a good thing that he goes follow arrows, so I won't have an event like I had in the desert lands, where I just completely got lost and didn't know where to go. But of course, unlike that, this would just be somewhere I didn't know where to go because, basically I couldn't find where I was going, not where I just couldn't find a runestone like in the desert lands. And of course, if you haven't seen that video yet, I basically for about 20 minutes got lost and couldn't find where the final runestone was, but in the actual video I condensed it down to like a short 2-minute clip where I talk about like a few things that I actually was trying to do there, trying to find that runestone. And then of course it goes back to regular speed after I find the final runestone, because I knew like there was no runestone after that and I didn't want to miss one after all. Because the problem is, as I mentioned, if I only had gotten 11 runestones, it would still go to this level, but then I wouldn't be able to get past the Ultra Score, and I'd just have to go back and do the whole thing again. And of course, all of these special enemies for the levels are like the stronger versions, like for instance the little lava beasts there aren't the little blue ones, they're the big red ones who actually can shoot. So unlike the generators that would generate certain degrees of enemies, these more or less are like the all or nothing until you actually destroy them. Just because they're shattered a little doesn't mean they're going to generate the lesser of the enemy types, so you won't get the little blue lava monsters or the smaller trees. I still could remember when I first like fought trees, I was like, wow, there's like trees with arms and legs that are actually attacking me right now. I was really surprised about that. It was a really crazy enemy design decision, but kind of fitting for a forest, that the actual forest more or less is attacking you. And of course here, some more of these enemies and some more of the generators to destroy. I think at this point when I was playing this, I was more or less like in auto run at this point, where it was kind of like, you know how your mind degrades to such a fact where you're just like, kill enemies, get further in level to get to end. And like, you ever do one of those like all-nighters where you're basically doing the whole game all at once? But, because as I had mentioned, what you had seen in these 4 videos was these 5 videos actually, I'm sorry, was, one straight run. It was just one whole, session where I just did this all in one sitting. So, unlike the arcade where you would, play a little bit, with a few people, come back, play some more. I more or less played this whole game in one sitting, which I believe was over 2 hours. Almost going on 3, I think it was. But if you check the playlist after I'm done posting this video I'm recording right now, I'm guessing it would list the complete playtime, or if it doesn't, just add up all the times, and that'll give you how long it took me to play complete playtime. Basically, plus 18 minutes of extra looking for the runestone, if you want to get an exact time of how long it actually took me to play this, without the reduced time for the crazy searching for the runestone. Or, of course, as I was trying to say, including that.
Follow arrows.
And now this is kind of a silly part where it's telling you to follow the arrows, because you actually have to defeat the enemy here, or you will not move on. And this is one of those enemies that's kind of best to try to stay away from it as much as you can, because it's just gonna, like, whittle down your health bit by bit. And unfortunately, somehow I triggered another one of these guys while I was still fighting this one. Which, of course, isn't the easiest thing in the world when you're one character and there are multiple enemies on the screen that are big and powerful, and they're all, like, attacking you at once. For a second there, it looked like the lion tried to attack the other enemy there. And at that point, I was thinking to myself, do I really have to fight these things, or can I just continue on in the level and just ignore them? But of course, as you could see, how the door didn't open. You just have to defeat these things, unfortunately. But of course, the good thing about having the actual arcade hardware, or if you're lucky enough to have an arcade cabinet, you could coin up as much as you want and not have to pump 2 quarters in every time you want to get some more health. And it looks like I defeated the lion, so now I only have this one to fight. They're kind of like... I remember when I had first played this, I was thinking to myself, it reminds me of Ghostbusters, where the dogs on the top of the building came to life. But in this case, it's more or less the amorphized stone statues that are actually fighting you here. So it's not like they broke out of the stone and then started running at you. It's the actual stone living, and you have to defeat it or die trying. And that's one thing I like about some of these games is, at least when you're hitting the enemy, you know you're hitting the enemy. I've played so many games where there's a boss battle, and no matter how much you attack the enemy, you hear no actual feedback that you're hitting the enemy, and of course that just gets annoying after a while, because you don't know if you're actually more or less beating the enemy. And now that was a follow arrows. He really didn't need to know, because I knew to, but I couldn't walk through the door yet because it didn't open yet.
You are now entering the Throne of Scorn.
Now this is the actual final boss fight of the game. Whereas, of course, earlier, that was just kind of like the first version of Scorn, whereas this one is the true final boss. Very similar to the last one, but more or less some of his attacks have been upgraded. Like, he can throw stuff further, he can hurt you more. So it's kind of like the last battle, but he just is a bit stronger and his attacks do a lot more damage. Which, when you think of it, it doesn't make all that much sense in the scope of things, since the guy told you that you had banished him to the underworld. You'd think he'd actually be weaker, but I guess maybe since he's like evil and the underworld's an evil place, it actually gives him like power. Plus, since he looks like he's partially made of fire and he's actually in lava, maybe that helps his cause, if you will. So he actually gets more power from being in something that would normally kill most other living things, but considering he's a demon, he doesn't have to go by the laws of living things. And this is another one of those levels with a really like rockin' soundtrack. Like you're facing this enemy and you're like, wow, this actually makes it feel a bit more epic that you have this like kind of like rock techno music going on in the background. And any of these battles, like, when you fight these battles, they feel even more epic if you have 1 to 3 more players to play with. But this is actually my second time actually ever seeing this. And of course, as I had mentioned, I'd only ever played this once, which was the actual time when this was played. As I said, one long marathon session of Gauntlet Legends. And here we are, the final boss of this long arcade game, which they would then go later and upgrade to Gauntlet Dark Legacy. And if anybody wants me to, I can post more Gauntlet Dark Legacy videos showing all the different realms of that game as well. Or I could just show the realms that are different than this game, and then the ending of that game if it's much different, which, as of recording this video, I've never been to the end of Dark Legacy. So that would be a new thing for me as well.
Green Archer is now a level 50 Ranger.
And that's one more of your transformation sequences. Kind of like when I became a scout and when I became the other transformations earlier. And you'll notice that now the bow is actually a bit bigger, and I think the character gains a little bit of size as well, which kind of gives you a better attack. And I think it actually improves like speed as well. So it actually helps here being able to get this during the boss battle. And that's another good thing, because there's so many games you'll play where you don't get experience until you actually defeat an enemy. Whereas with this game, every attack that I'm doing is actually giving me experience. And that's especially good here in a boss battle, because as you've seen, I've gained an important level and my character has gotten a bit stronger, so that helps a lot, especially in a harsh boss battle like this one. And since I've never played this with multiple players, I don't know if we'd all be cramped on one platform, or if everybody would kind of be around Scorn. Because, like, for instance, on the Altar of Scorn, everybody would have been on the front platform, since there was no, like, getting to the sides or anything, but I'm guessing everybody would probably be relatively isolated to the one platform. And one thing you'll definitely notice about his, like, fire-breathing attack, he kind of does that a lot faster than he did on the Altar here in the Underworld. And the, that kind of, like, quake attack that he shoots from around him has a much further range. I think even if you were at the furthest part of this, you'd kind of get hit a little at least. And as I'd mentioned, just everything he does is quicker or further. Whereas on the previous battle, there were certain of those attacks that, like, you could be standing out far enough, and he couldn't hit you no matter what he did. But in this one, if you're standing still, he's going to get you. And now you'll see, just like at the end of the Altar of Scorn, he's kind of like redoubling his efforts and pulling out all the stops here with that new thing that shoots from his waist as opposed to his fire breathing. So he has a few more extra attacks in order to pour it on, if you will, when he's trying to kill you before he dies himself. Because, you know, no villain ever wants to die to the good guy. And that takes care of Scorn once and for all. And I'm guessing the reason that it gives you more money is just in case you want to play some more.
The evil demon Scorn has been destroyed. He will never again threaten the Four Realms. You have done a great service for your people. Your name will be remembered forevermore. Go now, mighty hero, and take a well-deserved vacation. You have done well.
Well, of course, your name will be in there forever until the hard drive fails on the arcade machine and it loses all the high scores. Well, unless they're stored on the... And there's my total playtime. 3 hours, 57 minutes, and 22 seconds. 90 credits. And you'll see there's that final image that I've shown in the beginning of all these videos. There's also one for Dark Legacy as well. Now, what you can do is you can, before December 3rd, January 15th, there was a contest where you could actually win a free t-shirt for, like, playing the game really well or something. Oh, actually, July 9th of 1999. The first 500 non-repeating entries would win the prize, and you'd get that really cool I Defeated Scorn t-shirt, which I always thought was really cool, but of course it was one of those things you'd need to have an arcade right by you, and you just need to, like, get through the game really quickly, which means having a lot of money to play the arcade game. But yeah, that's Gauntlet Legends in the arcade. I'd highly recommend it, either on an emulator or the actual arcade machine. Or, of course, if you can't play one of the console versions. Well, this has been another Game Nexus Let's Play, and I will see you later. Bye.